the Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso watch, a true icon of creative watch design since the 1930s. This is a watch of officers, princes, and kings. What are the features of this special watch, and what, if any, are its flaws? That coming up next. In the 1930s, the British still thought they would rule India forever. George V was king, the empire was strong, Indians used elephants for construction work, and British officers had discovered the eastern sport of polo. But as with the modern sport, officers playing this sport had a problem: breaking their watch crystals during play, and they were looking for something better. In 1931, the Reverso watch was born. The original Reverso watch, and some models today, have a face that can be flipped over to hide the crystal from damage. This particular model is the Reverso Duoface, which has many of the same features of the original, but has a second face on the reverse for a second time zone instead of a solid metal caseback. With its interesting flip case and Art Deco styling, the Reverso was an immediate hit. Art Deco styling was all the rage in the 1930s and can be found everywhere, in art, architecture, household items, from New York to Marrakesh. Art Deco features slick, clean lines and curves, a minimalist design, and geometric patterns. It's a beautiful, simple art form. The first thing you notice when you look at a Reverso watch is the way it's built. First of all, not only is it beautiful, but it's built like a tank. And I'm not just referring to the shape, it's the weight. It's a very hefty watch with 18 karat gold, and so very solid, and it's a very solid looking design. The other thing you'll notice here is the lines. This Art Deco styling with the lines built in, very deep into the case carved in, gives it a very Graf Zeppelin-like look, which is very nice, a very 1930s Art Deco styling, and that really works. The case is just the right thickness, I think. Not too thick, not too thin. It is a fairly small watch, and so that thickness gives it a bit of bulk to give it a manly feel. To wind the watch, it's a simple hand-winding mechanism. It's not a self-winding automatic movement, and that adds part of the charm to the movement. As you can see, it has a small seconds at the 6 o'clock, and the button at the top there, I'll explain that a bit later when I go into the GMT features. Of course, the main feature of this watch is the flip. You pop the dial open, slide it over, and it's held in place by this ball joint here. Then you just flip the case over and snap it in place with the ball joint on the other side. The reverse side of this watch is a GMT black dial, officially called slate gray, which runs by the same movement as the white dial. And it has a 24-hour indicator on the bottom, night and day, and the hours are set differently from the other side by this push button. So even though the watch is running by the same mechanism on both sides, the same movement, the black dial can have a different time than the white dial, which means it's a 2-time zone GMT watch. One of the interesting quirks about this watch is that when it's in black dial side, you have to wind it toward you because it is using the same mechanism as the front dial. On the black dial, the hands do have lume. However, it's not a heavily advertised feature of the watch, as it is, frankly, next to useless. The lume fades quickly after just a couple of minutes, and it really isn't very bright in the first place. On the reverse of the watch, you see several markings here. I have the serial number covered up. The first marking is the 3-bar dial, indicating 30-meter water resistance, and then the 1,000 hours control seal. We'll talk about that later. And finally, the model number, in this case a 278.2.54. This whole case, by the way, is solid 18 karat gold. The inside of the case is beautifully engine turned and has JLC stamps as well as AU 750 marks. This refers to the Swiss designation of 750 parts per 1,000 gold, or 75% gold. In most other jewelry, this is referred to as 18 karat gold. 18 karat gold, of course, being 18 parts per 24 gold. I'm not sure of the exact makeup of this Jaeger-LeCoultre gold, but this is called pink gold, and pink gold is usually 75% gold, 20% copper, and 5% silver. Again, I'm not sure of the exact makeup of this gold, but whatever it is, it looks beautiful. The alligator strap on this watch is absolutely gorgeous. Made by Jaeger-LeCoultre by Camille Fournet of Paris. It's thick yet supple, silky, beautiful, an absolutely gorgeous strap. These straps are hand cut from alligator hide using surgical blades, and then hand stitched and hand buffed. So really, really well made strap. This particular strap is a dark color, so it will last longer, according to Jaeger-LeCoultre, than the same material designed in lighter colors. Recently, JLC has heavily advertised its relationship with another strap maker, Argentine boutique strap maker Casafaliano, which also makes polo boots, and therefore carries on the Reverso polo connection. Interestingly enough, for this video, I reached out to Casafaliano for photos and footage, and initially received a very enthusiastic response, asking me how much footage do you need, what are the time length of the videos. But then they asked me what the footage would be used for, and I said, a YouTube review. And that was it. Despite additional attempts at contact, they ghosted me like a bad date. Fortunately, I can't say the same for Jaeger-LeCoultre themselves. Their representatives in Europe were very helpful and encouraging in the making this video, and thanks to them for doing that. The movement of this watch is the 854/1, a tough movement that's heavily plated as opposed to many modern movements that tend toward skeletonization. JLC is secretive about the specifications of its movements, as if the quality is there and you shouldn't have to ask. But anecdotally, the 854/1 achieves accuracy of about plus or minus 3 seconds per day with proper maintenance. Mine never has. Mine runs at about plus or minus 20 to 30 seconds per day, which probably means it needs a service, at 21,600 beats per hour. The 1,000 hours control seal on the caseback that I mentioned earlier refers to Jaeger-LeCoultre's process of testing each movement and watch for regularity, regularity with temperature changes, water resistance, and resistance to shock and magnetism. And as the name implies, these tests last for 1,000 hours, both inside and outside of the case. And although the history of the Reverso may be that of a tough polo watch, it is important to note that Jaeger-LeCoultre's website says that the watch must not be used for sports involving significant risk of impact. This is a dress watch. So what about this watch do I dislike? Well, there's nothing in particular I dislike, but there are a couple of things I would do differently. On the white dial, the white gold sword hands look beautiful, but at the 6 o'clock, the mini seconds hand, the small seconds hand, looks a little bit underwhelming to me. I don't know how I would do it differently, but it just looks a little bit plain. On the black dial, it's a different story. On the black dial, I don't know why they went with the lume. The lume isn't strong enough to be used at night, so it's quite useless for that respect. And there's also not enough lume to make it look more interesting in the daytime, so I don't know why they bothered. The hands do match the dial, so it's not bad, but I would just do something a little bit differently. I think it would look beautiful with blued steel hands. Of course, there are other options available in this watch in a lot of different models, but on this particular model, I just find that the hands aren't quite as interesting as the rest of the dial and the rest of the watch. The second thing is the crystal. The Reverso has a thick sapphire crystal, which is tough and durable, so no issues there. However, it was difficult to even film this watch without a lot of glare. There is no mention of anti-reflective coatings on Jaeger-LeCoultre's website, and it appears that it doesn't have any. This is especially noticeable on the slate gray or black dial, which has this beautiful guilloche pattern, but it's not visible when viewed at 90 degrees. To view it, you have to see it with either the light at an angle or the watch at an angle. Unfortunately, at the angles where you could see the guilloche pattern the best, the view was often obscured by the glare coming from whatever light source was around, be that a window or an actual overhead light. And here I'll just demonstrate what that looks like. So as the watch turns over, you can't see the pattern on the dial, and just when the pattern starts to come into view, it's completely obscured by reflection. Now it's coming into view again, ever so briefly, and then from 90 degrees, the pattern basically disappears. And then just going back, same thing. The pattern appears just off 90 degrees, and then immediately the glare gets in the way. You have a small window of opportunity where you can see it, and then it's gone. So beautiful dial, but a very small window of opportunity to actually view that dial in many lighting conditions. So what's my final conclusion for the Reverso watch? Well, this is a watch of understated charm. Even in gold, it isn't flashy or blingy. It isn't oversized like so many watches these days. It's a gorgeous Art Deco masterpiece. I enjoy the fact that I can flip the dials according to my mood, and I often do that midday just for a change of pace. So it isn't just for GMT. I often keep the same time on both dials and just flip them, several times a day just for something different. And I do like the polo connection and the polo history of the watch, great sport, and the history of both the watch and the watch company itself, Jaeger-LeCoultre. As noted, I wish the glass were more reflective coated, or if it's reflective coated at all, but I can live with that. It's a medium-sized watch, but because of the weight of the watch, it feels substantial. I had it measured at about 27.5 by 46 millimeters. Finally, I love the way the light plays off the pink gold case. Sometimes it looks like a 24-karat gold case. Other times it looks rose gold. In different lighting conditions it looks brass. It's a very dynamic look. Is this watch a great value? Well, of course not. It's a luxury watch. When you buy a Picasso or Rembrandt, you're not paying for the cost of the canvas and the paint. You're paying for the history and the artistry, and it's no different here. So what I would say is this. If you can afford to buy one, do. You will not be disappointed. It's a pleasure to look at every time I look down on my wrist. So that's my review of the Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso watch. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit subscribe because there are many more videos to come. And if you like this watch and want to learn more about it, there are some links in the comments. So thank you, and I will see you in the next video.